Damn, Q. Baby, you did that.
Welcome to the Oh Yeah podcast with your boy, Mr. Oh Yeah, Detroit's #1 ambassador. Appreciate you joining us for another episode of Real Stories from Real People. Welcome to another episode of the Oh Yeah podcast with your boy, Mr. Oh Yeah, Detroit's #1 ambassador, where as always, we talk about real stories from real people. And today, we are blessed and honored again to speak to leaders of the industry here in the city of Detroit. Those who have been around for a long time and that really just keep going, new innovative ideas, and have really truly made an impact, not just on our culture, but in the restaurant industry, hospitality industry, the club industry. And if you haven't heard of them, you probably just haven't been walking around the streets of the city of Detroit. We have today the owners of Flood Bar and Grill, as well as The Block and the Garden Theater. Cristina and Stephanie Byrd. How are you ladies doing today?
Well,
good.
Wow, what an intro.
Woo! Listen, you ladies deserve it. And again, we thank you guys for stopping by. I really felt in my heart it was important that your story got told on this platform, and we had an avenue to really just have a candid conversation about how you guys have been in the industry for a long time, taking over a particular legacy, and just where you're looking to go going forward. So I guess with that being said, tell me how's business over at Flood's Bar and Grill and The Block in the Garden Theater.
This is new. We're both not talking over each other. This is new. We're being respectful
That's right.
in front of
Sisters,
you.
come on now.
We're cutting each other off.
Yeah.
Business is good. Things are good. We're happy with the bounce back from COVID and the pandemic.
Yeah.
In fact, we're incredibly blessed that we have recovered, and we're doing well, and most of our staff is still with us. Yeah. We're going strong, and we we are going to add a few components, businesses, some elements. We're growing.
Okay.
And we're happy about that.
Yeah, you should be. Don't give it all up. Now we're going to walk through that to get all the little scale, the scale up of the legacy that you guys got going on. And I am remiss as I introduce Cristina and Flood's Bar and Grill, but every Wednesday, All Industry Connect, where me and my partner, Liquor Guy Dwayne, we always have a great time here connecting with others and partnering with Miss Cristina and doing that every Wednesday. So we know a little bit about the business and doing fairly well on Wednesday nights, right?
A little bit.
Little bit. Well, look, that's where I would like to start, is more of the background of you ladies and, and how you got in the industry. Of course, I know a little bit about it, but if you could break it down, as Flood's Bar and Grill has been a staple to the community, is it well over 30 years now, right?
Yeah, almost 35.
Almost 35. And how did all that start?
Flood's was an existing business, and our parents were supposed to buy it with a partner, and that didn't happen. They backed out, and my parents decided to still proceed.
Okay.
And that's how Flood's got started off the ground initially. It's always been a family-oriented business.
Okay.
And they had no experience in the restaurant business.
Really?
My parents have never worked in a restaurant,
Okay.
a bar, zero experience. It's not even possible.
Been a bartender, a server, a nothing. So that also has led to different challenges too, in terms of me and Stephanie have been working in these businesses our entire lives. So we have a different perspective than they do, obviously, especially our dad. And a lot of people don't know, which is something me and Stephanie talk about often, is that really the real foundation of floods is built off our mother.
Okay.
And she was here in the beginning, you know, when we were little. She was the one that was here, and some of our cousins, our uncles, they were the ones here instrumental because our dad still worked a regular job.
Okay.
For many, many, many years. I don't think Daddy retired till like 2000,
I was in high school.
Okay.
Something like that, like somewhere in late 90s. I mean, like, it's been a while.
Okay.
So, that was family, other managers, but we always had family cousins, people always family working here. So that's been the way, that's just kind of like the Floods way. And we used to always talk about like the Floods family. It doesn't always mean like our immediate family. We have employees that come back, they go do other things, they come back. We have employees that have left and live somewhere else and come back and stuff all the time. And you know, it's like if you're a member, you're always a member.
Yeah.
So
I like that, and kind of speaking to that, if you can kind of tap in, because I almost compare it to like Ken Griffey Jr., right? His father played pro ball, and he just kind of grew up playing baseball, right? So it was evident that his father was a pro. He ended up being a pro, and we seeing it like in LeBron James now. So you guys almost grew up in the family business in that same manner. Was it like every day at Floods, or?
Well, we had two different paths to get here. That's for sure. So she was always into the family business from a very early age. We're 5 years apart. I'm 5 years older. So the age difference doesn't matter now, but then, you know, when you're 5 and 10, or you're like 10 and 15, that's significant.
Right.
And my little sister is going off to be with my dad. I was anti-floods, anti-nightlife. I think because we had completely different experiences. I was 5 when floods started. So I learned about this through therapy, which is that, you know, floods kind of changed my whole family dynamic, right? Now it's for the best, but then, you know, as a very young person, like, the family changed, you know, like our dynamic changed. My parents had to work late nights. I was with a babysitter. My world changed. And so I had a different, I'm sure that left some type of impression
and you had
on
a
me.
new sibling.
And I had a new sibling, but more so I remember kind of the ebbs and flows of daily life and ritual changing significantly. Dad worked a 9 to 5, and many times he went straight from that 9 to 5. He went home. I could still smell the aftershave. He'd go home, take a shower, throw that polo aftershave on, and head right back out.
Right out here, huh?
And wouldn't come back home. I wouldn't see him till the next morning, but he didn't come back home to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So, I
remember him
bringing breakfast home. Our
From
story.
Floods.
No,
like
McDonald's breakfast before school started. Like he was coming home when we're getting ready to go to school.
And many times he still had to go to work. It's amazing. I mean, the man must have run off of just 3 or 4 hours of sleep for decades.
Pure fumes, huh?
Pure.
Especially, I'm assuming, like the startup, it took a little while for it to kind of get going, I would assume, too, right?
Well, Floods is, you know, we should grab that old menu. The menu is completely different. You know, Floods just sells salads, sandwiches, didn't even sell soul food.
Okay.
Right? And eventually we had to stop serving lunch because our main customers were Blue Cross, and we couldn't turn it out they had 30-minute lunch, and we couldn't get it to them fast enough.
Okay.
And that's kind of how lunch, you know, and we kind of started focusing more on night and nighttime, and
So let me ask you this too: was it like daytime jobs at Floods for you guys, where you did some work around here as well?
Yes, for me, yes.
Okay.
So I remember when they were payphones, and from the payphones, I would have to get the change out of the payphones on the weekends, and I would have to count and roll the change, so we would have change.
Payphones inside of Floods?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we had payphones in the men's and women's bathroom. This was even before the addition.
Okay.
And I had to count the change. That was like a weekly thing that I had to do. And then when I turned 10, I started wanting to learn the kitchen.
Okay.
And I like to cook, I love to cook, and we had a kitchen manager at the time who was willing to put up with me. He was with us for a very long time.
Okay.
Troy. And I would come down and I learned everything.
Okay.
I learned how everything was made. I learned just all the mechanics behind the food aspect, because that's all I could really learn at 10.
Okay.
So then after that, right before high school, I wanted to be a line cook. And so my mother was adamantly against it. She did not want me down here at night. She did not want me late night. She thought it was very inappropriate.
Okay.
And so the compromise was that I had to be home by midnight.
Okay.
And we closed at 2. So my dad would be ripping and running to get me home by midnight, because that was like the deal. Like I had to be home.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to be home by midnight. So I learned every aspect.
Yeah.
In high school, I lost interest. And then when college came around and I turned 18, I learned how to bartend.
Okay.
And then I started learning the other aspects and sides of the industry. So kind of 360 from not only liquor, but food. And then when I finished college, or going through college, I was in a hospitality management program. And then that's when the real hard stuff came of managing the people.
Managing the people.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then my story is completely different.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you were against all of this, right?
Yeah, against all that. You take me back through therapy. I had to go back to when I was a kid. Had to go back through therapy. Why I wasn't into the floods idea. But for me, I never was that attached. Like, they had to force me to roll the change. They had to force me to manually enter credit cards. Most people, you can't even relate, but we had to manually enter, over dial-up, you had to manually enter the credit card tips.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was an all-day process.
Yeah.
But, I mean, those were my chores. And so, like any young person, I didn't like doing my chores.
Right.
I wasn't into floods. I was trying to hang out, be a young person. I went to college. It never occurred to me. I mean, not once did it occur to me that I would be back in Detroit,
right,
working with my sister and my family, and continuing to grow this business. It never occurred to me.
Not at all.
I just assumed I'm out. Detroit, I'm gone. I'm out.
And it took time. It took time for us to gel together, because I had been doing it so long, and I knew floods, you know, kind of forwards and backwards. And then we were starting, the garden got started in 2013, October 2013. So next year will be 10 years.
Yeah.
And,
well, wait a minute, don't go too far. This is still my show. I know you're the boss now, but don't go too far now, okay? We still want to walk this through, because this is life growing up in the city of Detroit for you ladies, right? And you both went off to school, right? Now, was it plan, again, for you not to even be in this industry whatsoever? So what was the plan? Because both are Howard graduates, correct?
Yeah. Oh, the plan for me was always Howard University. I went to Mercer High, so I went to a predominantly white school, so I knew I had to get out, and I knew exactly where I wanted to go from a very young, I mean, at 16, I went to a program, so I knew an HBCU, and it was Howard University for me, so I knew exactly where I was going. Now,
you didn't apply to anywhere else, did you?
Yeah, I did apply. I applied to FAM, I applied to a couple other schools, but it was always going to be Howard for me.
No problem.
No problem.
I don't remember there being any other discussion. Like, I mean, like, you applied, but I mean, like, that's all I remember. Yeah,
so I knew I would be in DC. I knew it was Howard. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I was someone who, it took me, I had a bit of a failure to launch. Like, I was someone who came into my career, into all of this at a later age, which is great, because I can tell a story like, you may not have it together, but I kind of figured it out, you know, 30, 35, you know, I feel like I'm in my prime now, I'm approaching 40. I figured it out kind of later, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all. That was my life too. And I'm a graduate of Southern University, and of course, I know Southern is better than Howard, but I was a failure to launch for me as well. But continue on. Go ahead.
Nice try. Nice try. However, I do think we're going to lose this Morehouse game in New York. But anyway, that's coming up this weekend. But anywho, so that's my little story. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a plan. My only plan was not to be in Detroit and to not work for the family business. That's all I knew.
And where it was totally different.
It was totally different, but I remember, because I remember, like, the conversations, like, here, like, you know, well, what is Stephanie gonna do? And, you know, I remember my parents, like, talking of, like, that was a conversation, and then, you know, they were like, well, you gotta come back home if you can't figure out, you know, and then she's like, well, I'm going to grad school. And I was like, okay, now we're going to grad school. Okay, cool. So she was matriculating through this whole process on her own. And I think they liked her being there, because our grandmother was in DC as well, and she was aging. So they're like, okay, good. You can kind of keep an eye on her. And then they were
more than keep an eye on her. We were roommates.
They were roommates.
We We hung out
very close.
Yeah.
Very close.
Yeah.
Very close. So yeah, just kind of happy accidents kind of along the way.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's good. But I guess your parents not just helped, but they realized what they had here, right? So it was almost continuously seeing the business go forward, and that's where you coming back and joining into the business. Is that how that went, or?
I don't even know if it was like continuously seeing, like, I think the planning, a lot of the planning stuff, and sometimes that was my frustration with floods. It was like, every day it's like we've never done this before, you know, and it's like, it can't be this hard. Right. It can't be this, you know, and just trying to put systems in place and checks and balances in place and stuff together. So that's like, it doesn't have to be this hard.
Okay.
And technology helps, you know, along with that as well. You know, we used to make Excel
spreadsheets,
schedules on Excel and things of that nature. You know, like, and like, that's, no one does that anymore. You know, there's an app for that. There's an app for this. There's an app for that. So, just pulling us kind of along and staying on trend and current with what's kind of going on around us.
Right.
I remember we had an POS system that my dad had designed in like DAWs, like the first operating system ever. And I was like, we can't survive like this anymore. And since then, we've changed like 3 times. But you have to just be able to adapt.
Be able to adapt. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that would take me to, with Floods being here over 30 years, like I really can't think of any other Black-owned establishment, restaurant and bar in the city of Detroit, right, that has been here this long and survived through it all. So now that we almost have like this emergence of other bars and grills and restaurants throughout the city, I'm confident that other Black owners have to have taken something from Floods, right? Some little piece here that they've learned. I spoke to someone when they knew I was doing this interview. They said they got pictures of their parents or grandparents being in Floods like over the years, right? Like, how does that feel to know that, you know, your family, you know, is a part of that legacy almost here in the city of Detroit? I
mean, we have like generations of customers, right? So you have like in the early 90s, you got maybe the grandparents, and then, you know, 10 or so years ago, 20 years ago, in 2000s, you might have gotten parents, and now the kids are 25 or 30, you know? So it's different. You have to just, you know, be open to change, which is really can be very difficult.
Okay.
And I think that's been, it's always hard when you've got younger kids trying to explain to your parents, you know, hey, you know, we need to move the needle a little bit. We're behind. We gotta, you know. So and
they telling you I've been doing this for years, huh? Come on now.
But
they know
overall,
what they're doing.
we're proud. We're incredibly proud that I ran into somebody at the doctor's office who got a vintage Flood shirt from 25 years ago.
Wow.
And it was proud to show it off. And I was proud to capture him in his Flood shirt. And that happens all the time. We'll be out of town and we find people, Floods, you know, it will come up.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like Floods, you know, we're not worldwide, but we're definitely domestic. And I'm incredibly proud of that because, you know, it's hard for people outside the industry to really understand how difficult this business is. Like, it is hard, and it's hard in so many ways. I mean, it's hard to be in this business as a Black family. I mean, it's hard for so many businesses. I worked a shift the other day, and I forgot how taxing it is on the body. I mean, something just quite as simple as like the restaurant business is hard on your body. You know, and you need that to function on a daily basis. So I'm proud that we're still here. We have no plans of going anywhere. We'll be here for quite a while. And we'll continue to evolve and reinvent ourselves. And I think that may be the piece that other businesses take along with them. Like, you gotta, that evolution, you've got to continue. It never stops. Even from where we're sitting right now, which is our Floods patio, like, we had to make an investment to add this on. And it's paid off for us. Like, people are like, oh, well, I didn't know this was here. Oh, I'm thinking about Floods in a little different way, a different light now with this patio. Great. That was my vision. I wanted you to think, oh, what can I do in this space? For people who don't want the old vintage Floods inside, well, we have a space over here just for you. So how do you continue to evolve? And we continue to challenge each other. Like, that's the race, is between each other. Like, not in a competitive sense, but how can we think ahead? How are we planning ahead, not just for Q4, next year?
And
it's a good balance.
And yin and yanging.
Okay.
You know, what I feel like I'm good at is, you know, the operation side of how things are going to operate and function. And she likes to bring some beautification to whatever is going on, some marketing to some finesse, because I tend to be very like cut, dry, black, white, direct, like it is what it is. And she's like, Chris, you know, we gotta put some flowers around it, and we gotta, you know, and I'm like, oh, well, how much is that gonna cost?
Right. I think I know the cut and dry Chris for sure. But
well,
I tell you, y'all definitely
it's a
sisters.
little more than beautification. I feel like that was simplified, and then here goes.
No, I mean just bringing a softer. I mean, bring a softer take to.
And I don't necessarily think it's softer. I think it's a different take. I don't think it's always softer, because what people don't know is, I don't even know if you want to get into our personality and our analysis of our personality.
We do.
People automatically, they assume. I would actually say that I'm probably the more confrontational one. Like,
oh, really? Okay.
That's what people don't know.
Yeah.
But what does confrontation mean to you? It's subjective, but she's gonna be probably the bigger personality.
Yeah.
And I may be the introvert. But when it comes down to confrontation, I'm gonna stay around for the fight.
Okay.
Little do you know, baby sister's gonna be out the door.
She gonna be gone.
She gonna be
Has
gone.
that always been you guys though, growing up? Has that always been?
I think that's always been kind of our dynamic.
Okay.
And we had to get out of that.
Okay.
Because we had I remember in the very beginning, we had several blow-ups at the garden in front of staff, and it was like, this is very unprofessional.
Right.
It was extremely unprofessional.
And
we had to learn from that.
And we had to wearn.
Okay.
We had to learn from that. And when we're thinking back, you know, I was 25.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a, you know, I was going through these things and always kind of waiting and wondering, you know, well, when are they gonna pass the baton on? When and now I understand that I was way too immature to do what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. Okay.
And my parents were wise enough to see that I was unprepared.
They were taking you through the steps.
They were I wanted to jump to the finish line, and they were telling me, this is you're moving too fast.
Man, I appreciate y'all sharing that level of vulnerability, you know, about y'all's story. You know, the people need to hear that. You know, because again, there is a huge emergence of these, like, I almost feel like Detroit is almost being, you know, revised to look very similar to a Chicago or Philadelphia, with restaurants and bars and craft cocktails and things of that nature. So those that look like us need to hear that growth.
And I think all of those things are great. I think they're great for the city. Yeah. But one thing that I find frustrating just here, like on the food scene, is that it is so difficult to get food here. It is almost impossible to get food past 10 o'clock in this city.
Yeah.
And I think I mean, like, that is one of the reasons why you want to serve these people, you want people to buy drinks from you, and then they can't get a chicken wing.
Yeah,
I mean, they can't get like just that one thing.
Right.
You know, but I think that's one of our obviously our strong suits is our food, and our kitchen stays open late, and that you know, like that's something that we pride ourselves on.
Yeah, and they love it. Yeah. Boy, I'm telling you, folks be talking about that chicken and that shrimp like like nothing else, man.
And it's consistency.
Yeah.
You know, consistency is key to anything that's going to be successful long term. And my race, we're running our own race. Right. Right. We're not running a race because somebody else or this and the third or woo, and we're not closed off in terms of seeking advice from somebody else, or if somebody else calling us and asking us for, you know, a vendor or something else. Like, we're not a closed book. This should be a community.
Absolutely.
Of black restaurateurs, you know, helping each other along the way.
And I want to get to that. Hold on, because I think a good segue is, well, you say consistency, right? Because I believe that led to the block and the garden. The consistency of floods led to this new idea, and to bring this to Midtown Detroit, right? So, you know, like, how has that been, you know, almost the creation or recreating, so to speak, you know, another, you know, community environment of, eatery and drinks and things of that nature.
That may have been, when I look at it now, 10 years later, because we've been around for 10 years over there at the Block and the Garden Theater, that was probably the more difficult of the two businesses.
Okay.
When you compare Floods to that was a long process. My dad and his partner, that took 10 years to acquire those parcels of land, because they own the whole entire block, corner to corner.
Yep.
And then we own and operate the apartments and the garden and the block. And I could tell some stories there. And honestly, that's where I want to get. I want to get to a place where I'm more transparent and tell you guys the stories, the pitfalls, and all these challenges that come with just owning a business. Entrepreneurship is a mother,
It
looks like in this instant life, this Instagram life, it looks like everything is like, oh, it just happened out of nowhere. It just sprouted from, and it's like, it is an iceberg. It took 20 years and tears and blood and sweat and,
and that's the story we gotta tell.
The sacrifices that it takes to really be dedicated, and it takes a village, it takes a family.
Yes.
I have a 10-year-old son, and over COVID, my parents pretty much became his primary caretakers.
Okay.
And that was kind of a conversation and a talk that we had, because one, we were trying to keep them out of public.
Right.
And two, age. They're matriculating out of this every night, long night process.
Right.
And if I'm tagging in, well, how is this gonna work?
Right.
So,
so I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna reel back, and we're gonna go back to talk about the magnitude of the block and the garden.
Yeah.
So that and our relationship, our whole dynamic changed through that whole process. I mean, it was ups, downs, rocky. And I'm glad you're giving us this platform to tell this story, which was, we started off with a concept, which was the Grill Midtown, which we pretty much had. I had just moved back to town, and there were some consultants who had no concept of just the climate.
Okay.
Of Midtown and just where Detroit was back then, or the city,
city at all.
So the menu wasn't right, the concept wasn't right, and we kind of, we made it through, but then the queue line came through, and that ripped all the little business we built up was decimated in a matter of months. So imagine you're building up something little, you're not fully behind it, but your dad's in it, and this is the opportunity you were presented with, so you're gonna try to plug away, and then whoosh, it's gone. And there was no support. They didn't provide any support. Like for any city who's trying to put a mass transit system in, you gotta provide some support.
Something, right.
I mean, there were a bunch of businesses that were decimated on Woodward, and really we were one of them. But
the only thing that kept us alive was the event side at that point, because it was too difficult for people to come around, and Woodward's closed and this and that. You're just trying to go to dinner, man. It's just like, I don't want to go through, it became too hard, right? But if your sister's getting married, then you'll go through the hard to, you know what I'm saying? If your niece is getting married, you'll go through the hard or whatever to get there. And it
worked.
Yeah, it worked.
It worked.
It worked until it didn't.
Until it did.
Until it didn't, which was, it didn't, the Grill Midtown stopped working completely. So in a matter of a month, and by we, I had taken some reins over from my sister, and by taking, I mean, I just ripped them away. And then this is when our relationship was going through a lot of challenges, because she lacked the maturity, and I quite frankly lacked the skill set. I had just come back in this game, I lacked the skill set.
Right.
And it was difficult for me, for her to come in and kind of act like she knows what's going on. It's like, hey, I've been here the whole time.
Right.
I think, I'm trying to impart and I would get to moments where I'd be frustrated because I, for example, asked her to come and learn the POS system, and she would refuse, and I would just be like, okay, all right, and eventually we came around and things started to gel and stuff more. And then we also decided that, my primary focus would be Floods, and her primary focus would be, and we
that
would,
was the best decision
we had a back channel of where we did business, but it wasn't really necessarily in front of our employees.
Right.
If that made sense.
And that was the best decision we've ever made. I think business-wise, as partners, is for us to say, hey. And it wasn't, hey, it was a knockdown, drag on. And I think that's what happens when family businesses is there are going to be some uncomfortable times. And that was an uncomfortable time because I remember you being overwhelmed. You had a baby, you were overwhelmed, it may have been 2 or so, and you weren't even interested in the grill Midtown. And I realized, like, this is my time to get it. Like, this is my time to shine. And I probably took it in the wrong way, but I basically said, I'm stripping you of these responsibilities, and I'm going to take over. And kind of like in a week, I took over. And I made huge sacrifices.
The restaurant. And changed the restaurant all at the same time. And I was like, but I also wasn't married to the grill Midtown. It wasn't my concept. It wasn't my baby. It wasn't, you know, so
you wasn't married
coming
to it,
back
so to
home to Floods, and Floods needed some care at that point too.
It needed
it was like Floods had kind of gotten, you know, not abandoned, but it wasn't being taken care of the way that it should have.
Okay.
And I think a lot of times in this, you know, setup, everyone is always interested in the garden and what's going on in the garden. And the garden is the big, and you know, for me, it's like,
hold up.
Floods is, you know what I'm saying? Like, it, you know, the perspective is different on my end. Like, Floods is the fountain of youth. It is the gift that keeps giving. It's the, you know, and that dynamic is very interesting. It's
very key. Well, again,
but it's exciting, right? The garden is exciting, and there are things going on, and you know, it's a different pace, and you know, but Floods is the foundation.
Listen, again, this platform, real stories from real people. And I think you touched on it. Sometimes from the outside looking in, we just see the result, right? But the journey is what really matters, right? You guys have really walked through something, and what you touched on was not just the business, but family, relationships, you know, and just how do we operate, growth, skill set, right? Education, all those things are needed in order just to get to here. And if I'm hearing you correctly, so much more you guys want to do, right?
And I think the other like family aspect is that no one else around us has like sisters. So my mom has a sister, but they've never worked together. My dad has brothers, so it's a different dynamic. Even with our cousins, you know, it would be like a brother and a sister, you know, whatever. So nobody was like the whole 2 sisters thing.
Right.
You know, it took time for us to really learn.
It's a complex relationship. That's the truth is. And I think sister relationships can be complex. I think we're exponentially more complex because we have work. You have all the joys and traumas of growing up together. And then we're continuing to be partners. We're working on the next business together. We're dividing roles and we're evolving. And then also what's interesting is we've really been on our own personal journeys lately, right? Like many times a few years ago, people would say, well, where's your sister? Where's your sister? We're not twins. I love my sister. We're not twins. We have different personalities, different interests, different things.
We're not going to be together like this every day.
We're not together all the time. But we still come back to each other. Like, you know, she's growing and learning, and I'm doing the same thing over here, and we still going to connect. What people don't know is we download every morning. We download every morning what happened last night. What's important today. What's happening tomorrow.
What do you need?
It's so many times.
I'm going to Depot. What do you need? I can go pick it up. I'm headed this way. All right, boom.
That's amazing.
And we're just making things happen all day long.
Listen, when we're done with this, I got 2 daughters, 12 and 7. I'm going to have y'all come talk to them too, all right? Y'all keep that counseling going. But this is something I want to touch on because I feel it's very, very important and key, not just period, but just where we at in the world today. Like all these things that you guys are talking about, the one thing I don't feel like we've touched on is, as a woman, as a black woman, like how are you guys able to manage and maneuver with employees, new partners, you know, new venture? I see deep breaths going on. Like, if you can kind of touch on that, because really, when I look around the city of Detroit, that's what I'm seeing. There's a lot of black women elevating, scaling up, and opening their own restaurants and bars. But you guys, again, with growing up through it all, I'm sure could be a vessel or a roadmap, so to speak, to others, right?
I would immediately say I took a deep breath because I'm not able to do it all, right? That's the revelation I had to have is I'm not Superwoman. I cannot do it all, right? And when I do attempt to do it all, it comes at great sacrifice to my mental health, right? I have sacrificed, and that's what we don't talk about kind of in the Black community is mental health. Like I'm a huge advocate of it. Truth be told is, in this business, I have sacrificed my mental health far too many times, right? And now now we've built this and we have some stability and I'm able to put up some boundaries and say,
not today.
Nope, I'm not the one to see for that. Nope, you need to see my staff. You need to see the managers I pay a salary to. You need to go, my phone is off. I'm on Do Not Disturb.
I'm off this weekend and I'm putting in time off so everyone can see I'm off.
And I might just be in bed.
Don't call me.
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
I might just be in bed, but I'm just unavailable to you. You think I'm out of town, I'm just unavailable.
I'm unavailable.
For whatever may happen at floods or the block this weekend. I'm confident, and another component is this, I have really had to invest and train my team. And let go. Right? They're not going to do it the way I would do it, but they're going to do it pretty damn close to the way I would do it, right?
They can get to the goal
and you got to be okay with that. You can't say, I cannot make another one of me. Even her, she'd do it a little bit different than I do it too. And that's okay. Because prioritizing my mental health has been,
it's key.
It's key.
So let me ask you, I'm assuming that's a process as well. Like from the start of you guys joining in the family business, so to speak, to coming to that realization. Like, what was that like, or how long did that take?
And we both had similar journeys, which is, over the course of the last 10 years, to get into therapy, regular therapy, because, there's this pressure and stress from like continuing to build this legacy, not letting my parents down, not letting my family down. We're not just talking about your parents, right? You always want to make your parents happy, but now I'm talking about a bigger responsibility, right? I'm responsible for her financial success, and she's responsible for mine. So I can't fail.
Not just ours. That's not even the part that I worry about. That's not the part that keeps me up at night. The part that keeps me up at night is that I have 40 people.
Come on now.
Who provide for their families
based
from
on
what
this.
I'm doing.
That's right.
Right? And I have an obligation to them to be about my business.
Come on now.
And if there's one thing that our Father has instilled in us is that you gotta take care of your people. Your people if you don't have employees, you don't have a business. If you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So if you don't take care of those two things,
what are we doing?
What are we doing here? What are we here for?
Because you're here for your community, right? That's what you're really here for. We're really in business, not for ourselves, because we'd be okay without floods. We'd be doing something else. We're here to give jobs. That's really ultimately my father's goal and all this was to provide how many jobs?
To provide jobs.
Listen, let me tell you, y'all really alike, more than what you probably think. You know what I mean?
We are alike.
I see the management and the boss, but y'all really ain't gonna keep moving my platform along, because y'all going right to what I was thinking. But community, like it means something to be who you are and where you are. I think if I counted correctly, 5 Black-owned restaurants or bars just downtown Detroit. Like, think about that. 5 downtown Detroit. And if my count is correct, only 1 in Midtown, which would be the Block and Garden Theater. So if you could, both of you, kind of touch on that, understanding that piece, the community piece, and what's next with that, you know what I mean? And as you say, remaining here for not just you, but
I just
for
wanted
others.
to touch on one thing, because you asked about the female aspect and how all of that works. And it's very interesting in terms of how I'm treated, how some of my counterparts are treated, which is completely different.
Well, let's just call a spade. There's a lot of misogyny in this hospitality world.
Come on.
In Detroit, I'm sure it's all around the United States.
There are very few women in this industry, and even fewer Black women in this industry that have been doing it a long time and are successful at it. And if they are, you know, like the slutty vegans, and they don't have the other aspect of the liquor aspect.
Right.
They're a food outlet.
Yeah.
And that liquor is a whole nother. That's a whole nother animal.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother animal, and that was something that initially I knew it would be important for us, and I just love seeing women in the industry. You know, when I see new bars that are Black women owned, and you know, it gets me excited. Yeah. You know, cause I want to go somewhere too. You know, I don't drink here. I don't drink at Floods. I don't drink on premise. Yeah. But when I go out, I want to support other Black people too.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think it's a circle. Yeah. You know, and you just got to keep the money is a circle, and you just got to keep the circle flowing. And the sooner our community realizes that it's a circle and circles it within our own community,
yeah, we'd be a lot better.
Far better off.
That's growth.
Yeah.
That's growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about how sad it is, like the statistics you just gave too. Yeah. Like, damn.
I know.
The blackest city in America.
Come on.
And they're 5 where? Down here?
And keep in mind, I'm talking about less than a mile. You know, and I don't mind shouting them out, like we talking about, you know, community.
Mix.
Minis, sloppy crabs, and now the new Pizza Cat and Floods. And when I tell you, they're all walking distance. It's like almost like we can't go on the other side or something. You know what I mean? What do you guys suggest? Like, how do we grow in that manner? And because they coming or they here,
well,
right?
It's cost prohibitive, and also in certain buildings downtown, they don't want certain types of businesses.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just
ultimately means they don't want Black businesses.
Come on now.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
They can't say that outright.
Yeah.
They don't want us.
Right.
And there's a vibe. There's a vibe and an undertone of that, because we go to all different types of bars and restaurants, and you know, all over. Yeah. And here in Detroit, I always find it very interesting when you walk in a place and they kind of look surprised that you're coming in, and it pisses me off, because you should be expecting Black people to come to your establishment. That's because there's 700,000 Black people that live here.
Come on.
I mean, it's just a matter of the numbers.
That's
you know, and they create an unwelcome tone, and it's insulting when what's being played through the speakers.
Come on now.
Is Black music.
Yeah.
So they want. You know,
they want some of us.
You know, they take the pieces of us that they like or can tolerate.
That's right.
And, you know.
And then try to move with something else.
It's like, well, walking in a place and you're playing, you know, Migos.
Right.
And then you're saying, you know, we're full today.
We see that a lot.
And there's
we're still segregated.
That's right.
It's a segregated city.
It is. It is. There are some challenges, but I will tell you this. Again, a graduate of Southern University, and it was African American Studies for me. And I know we fought really hard to integrate. We fought hard to be able to go where they were at. You know what I mean? But what we lost was the support of Black-owned businesses, right? When you could only go to the Black-owned businesses, those businesses were thriving.
And
you know what I mean?
And schools.
Right?
It has greatly affected the education here, I think, in Detroit. Even from when we were growing up. You know, me and my friends, we often talk about, like, it was like a golden age almost in Detroit, where everybody, you know, people were working, people were, you know, they could take care of themselves, and everybody was doing something.
Yeah.
You know, the schools weren't, DPS wasn't the best. I am DPS. I went to Renaissance.
Okay.
But the other things that I got from DPS, the Black History projects that we did all the time, the learning about my culture and community, the reading the Zora Neale Hurstons in high school, and those are the things that they're stripping out. They're trying to strip out of school.
Come on now.
And that was the best part of DPS.
Listen,
the best part of DPS is when I got to college, I knew exactly who I was. I was not confused about who I was as a black person or as a black woman. And there were other people coming in from suburban areas whose parents lived in suburban areas, and they're going to predominantly white high schools, and you could see that they were having complete culture shock because they had never been around this many black people.
That's right.
And they had been told their whole life that there weren't, educated black people to be around.
And then
because that's the environment that they had been shown and put in. And I'm like, but I can also show you high schools after high schools that have great graduation rates where everybody goes to college in the same city.
Absolutely.
So,
man, I'm so glad we did this. I didn't even know she was a preacher. Look at it, like it's coming all out. I need all that.
Absolutely a preacher.
I love it. Sure. I love it.
But one thing we didn't mention is that how pro-Detroit and pro-black our parents are. Like, it didn't come from DPS. It came from our parents who laid this foundation, which were, they wanted to buy a business in Detroit, and they did. They wanted to live in Detroit, still live in Detroit. Haven't thought about living in the suburbs at all.
Never.
We live in the city of Detroit. That is very important to us. Those are our core values, which is to stay in Detroit, to support local in Detroit, buy Detroit. This is a black Detroit thing in life that we have here that our parents started. She went to DPS, but I went to a small school called Nataki Taliba, which infuses black culture in you like you would never believe. Like, it completely surrounded by education and blackness, and that's where I got that from. Right? And these are our parents who wanted to instill these values in us, and we'll continue to instill these in her kid,
and
maybe
black,
my kid
and
one
black
day.
excellence. Black excellence. We saw it everywhere. I mean, my pediatrician was black. My dentist was black. Any sort of professional people, my friends' parents were teachers and this and that, and then the professor. So there was nothing as a child growing up that I didn't think a black person could do, because I was constantly surrounded about black people who were doing it.
Who was doing it already.
My best friend's mom was an attorney, and then she became a judge. I mean, her grandmother was one of the first graduates of Howard Law School.
Come on now.
I mean, like, these are
That's
the
the community
who
you
picked
know.
me up from school, right? These are the people who we would cop a squad, and they make us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, not knowing they're giving us everything.
They're giving you the jewels. They're giving you the jewels.
So there was nothing we couldn't do.
Come on now.
Absolutely nothing we couldn't do.
Come on.
And that's what our parents gave us.
And I love that.
Right, and that's what we'll give her son, my nephew, which is, nothing you can't do.
Right.
And there's nothing you can't do, especially with the city behind you. With this city behind you.
Come on.
Even though to the young black restaurateurs who are out here trying to figure it out, this city is behind you. And we're going to support you through and through. We will support you through and through. This city is going to support these black businesses. And we are going to put all our funds into black businesses and recycle those funds and reinforce all the positivity we can in black businesses.
And we starting it right here. That's the reason why we doing it. This is the Oh Yeah podcast. I am Mr. Oh Yeah, and I am Detroit's #1 ambassador. And that's what we got to talk about. And that's why I'm so thankful that you guys joined in on this. And with that foundation that you guys have just presented, and how it means so much to the family, culture, community. What's next for the Garden Theater, the Block, or the Byrd family? We're keeping it on the low?
No. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's coming next.
Please.
So we have a breezeway in the Garden Theater that not too many people know about. This looks like an ordinary breezeway. But we are developing this breezeway into its own concept. So think seasonal bar. It's going to be very special. Very special. It's going to be small, but it's going to be something very special that the city hasn't seen, something we haven't done before, and we're really excited about it. It's another way for us to evolve and to do something different with the existing space that we already have, similar to this patio. Like, it's not always necessarily about acquiring a new space, having more expenses. How do you work within the confines of what you have? And that's what we're thinking about things in a new light, in a new way. And then also, we have played around with this for several years, which is Floods 2.
Okay, now.
Floods 2.
Okay.
Come on now, Floods 2. We're working on
now.
this concept. We've been nervous because folks have been talking about a recession.
Yeah.
But we're going to get that together.
I know you are. It's evident. It's evident, man. And again.
But again, that goes back to, again, as we finally find some balance in our lives where we are, that goes back to what are you willing to risk in terms of your mental health, right?
That risk reward.
What it takes for, what that's going to take from us to make that happen. That's going to be a real commitment.
Yeah.
You know, and
we may not be ready for that commitment.
Yeah.
It may be a different business that's not as difficult. Who knows? But there'll be a continuation to our story, for sure.
I know it is, and I'm sure there's going to be a time where you guys can come back and share a little more, and it'll probably lead into more of our behind-the-scenes conversations that we like to have.
We still have to talk about relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
I know,
I know. That's a little teaser, Steph. Come on now, we can't get it.
That's part 2. This would be like a 3-part podcast.
A 3-part podcast. But ladies, thank you. Thank you to the Byrd family. Thank you to Floods, The Block, the Garden Theater for always betting on yourselves, betting on the city of Detroit, and continuing to work with all of us. Again, it's obvious that it ain't easy, but we thank you for continuously doing it. The city of Detroit, as you say, will always support. I laugh all the time because if nothing else, when I got folks coming in town from everywhere, oh, they going to Floods. You know what I mean? They know it's always, again, a staple to the community that they know they can depend on to have a good time, get a good meal, and see good people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're always welcome on the Oh Yeah podcast, and I look forward to all the great things you guys have coming in the near future.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank
you.
you.
Shout out to you.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Come on now. We
You've
working
been
here.
rocking these podcasts.
We
out
working here. Yeah. I'm thankful for that. Let's say that while we got the camera rolling. For the partnership of Floods and being able to do this. We like having a home here at Floods to do these podcasts. And believe it or not, the people have loved it as well. You know, Envy and Manny Fresh, they come down, they rock the set, and they really opened up. And I think that plays a part to the atmosphere as well. You know, all of it is working out, and we're gonna keep working together.
Yeah, the city needs this.
Come on
Wednesday
now.
night.
Come on
now, city.
We need this.
We need this.
Something fresh.
Come on now.
Yeah.
All right. Love it. Come back and check y'all again on the next episode. Your boy signing off, Mr. Oh Yeah, Detroit's #1 ambassador.